Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and again, if you've been enjoying these videos on SQL, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment and follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So now in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of review HTML, but now using Dremio. And again, whenever we use Dremio to create, update, or delete a table, we're actually working with Apache Iceberg. And again, as I talked about in the first video, Apache Iceberg provides that metadata layer. So that way we have this sort of data. So we can have the data in the data lake, but we can treat that data as tables that are portable, not just in Dremio, but in tools like Apache Spark, Apache Flink, and others. Okay. And first, we're just going to show you kind of how that works. So what I'm going to do, okay, is I am going to create a table. Okay, so we'll just do our normal SQL like we've done in previous videos. And the cool thing is that when you go to Dremio, so again, let me just show you how I get here. If we go back to the Dremio main screen, okay, so this will generally be your main screen where you can see all your data sources. Okay, what I can do is you click here, you see the SQL runner. And then you get this nice SQL development area, okay? And basically I can create, and see it has a nice autocomplete. Okay, I can turn on light mode and dark mode. So I can click here to however you prefer it. Very nice. Okay, so I'm going to say create table. And again, we have to kind of describe where we want to make it. So I'm going to put it in my Minio, okay, because Minio's acting as our storage layer, our data lake. I'm going to want to put it in a folder. We'll call it, folder, and then I'll just call it today's date, which is 12/2/3/23. Okay, so that's the date, and then we'll give the table a name, and that table we'll call it table A. Okay, so that's gonna be the name of the table. So again, that just tells me that the source is Minio, so that's the source where I'm creating it. And then I'm gonna say, hey, I want it in a folder called that, and in a table called table A. So I'm gonna say, hey, I want to create that table. And basically, just like we just say, hey, we wanted a name, and it's going to be a varchar field. Okay, and I put a semicolon, and then we run the query. And that's going to create the table. Okay, and that's done. So it's pretty quick. Now, if I go back to my Minio console, okay, and I go back to, let's see here, I go back to the object browser. So there's my storage bucket that we created back in the first video in this series. And I see there's the folder that we just mentioned, folder 12/23/23. And there's my table. Okay, so you see here, the great thing about a data lakehouse is that, I can see what's going on under the hood. So if I want to know how this is all working, I can see it. So you see here just a folder called table A that has the data. Okay, and right now, there's no data in this table. So there's only a metadata folder. And this metadata is what a tool like Dremio uses to understand that, hey, this is a table, and this is the schema of the table, and this is the general data about the table. Okay, so that's what we see here. This metadata helps Dremio understand that this is a table. Okay, and other tools can see this table and interact with it too. And again, that's the beauty of Apache Iceberg. It makes your data portable. Your data is not stuck in a particular bucket in a particular database or data warehouse, where if you want to use it in a different database or data warehouse, you have to then make a copy of the data in the new location and have to deal with this whole data movement or migration. Just to kind of understand, like, why would you use this over just having everything kind of in the bucket like SQLite in the Intro to SQL series, which is another playlist on this channel. So again, subscribe, check it, browse around. But cool. Okay, so now that we've established that I can create a table, let's try to insert some data. Okay, so let's insert into. Now, do I really want to type out that whole Minio dot the folder dot whatever? Well, the nice thing about Dremio is that you can set a context. So you see right over here, I can set a context. So if I click on this, I can say, hey, you know what? I want sort of the default area to be Minio the folder. Okay, so this way I don't have to type Minio dot folder 23. That's going to be assumed. So now all I can do is type in table A. Okay, because now that context has been set, and I don't have to type in the before part. It's always going to assume this at the beginning, assuming, I don't put a fully qualified path. Okay, so for any one name token like that, it's just going to assume it's minio.folder, blah, 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 dot table A. Okay, so I want to insert into table A. I want to insert values. Okay, Alex Merced, Tony Merced. And the nice thing about here with Dremio is that if I put a semicolon, I can then put in another query. So I can actually write as many queries as I want. So I will do that. I'm going to write, then we'll do a select star to actually query the table. Select all from table A. Okay. Nice. Okay, so I have that. Now I can hit run. Oh, I made a mistake here. Let's see here. Not found in any table in query 1. If you do want to proceed, stop execution. Values. Oh, because I used double quotes. I even said this in a previous video that when you're dealing with characters, when you're dealing with like strings, you have to use a single quote. So that's my mistake. Okay, so let me just fix that. Let's run that again. Okay, and let's run that. Okay. And so now it's inserting the data. And I can see the result of the query by clicking here on query 1. And I can see the result that, hey, look, 2 rows were inserted. And then I can click here on query 2, and I can see the data. Okay, awesome. And the nice thing about Dremio is that if I wanted to easily like bring this data to somewhere else, or just deliver it to somebody that needs it in a particular form, I can click right over here, take these results, download them as either a JSON, a CSV, or a Parquet dataset. A Parquet dataset is actually a special type of file, particularly for analytics. So the problem is like JSON and CSV, they can be, they're text encoded. Okay, so they're text files, which means when you start having large amounts of data in them, it's going to take a lot longer to read that data. Parquet is binary. Now CSV is generally row-based, so each line equals a row. Again, if you watch the very, very first video in my intro to SQL theories, a series, or actually my OLTP and OLAP videos, I talked about the differences between sort of row-based and column and when you want one versus the other. Column is better for analytics, and Parquet is column-based. So it's binary, so it can fit a lot more information, a lot less space, and it organizes that data in that space in a columnar fashion, so it allows for overall faster processing of analytics. Okay? So that's why when you take a look at an Iceberg table, so now that I've actually put data into that Iceberg table, if I refresh here, okay, I'm going to refresh, I'm going to go into that storage bucket again, and here's that folder, and now here's our table A, and I go in here, and now notice it's no longer just the metadata folder, now there's this folder that's going to contain data in it. If I open up this folder, okay, there's a Parquet file. Okay, and that Parquet file, okay, is essentially my data. Okay, so I could just store the data as pure Parquet, but then if I have 1,000 Parquet files, tools like Dremio are not necessarily gonna know how basically these have the statistics to more intelligently scan those Parquet files. Okay, but thanks to something like Iceberg provides this metadata that Dremio can then read through all this metadata that's over here. And again, we don't need to understand right now like what's going on in this metadata, but just know that this allows Dremio to be able to figure out, hey, which files it needs to read faster of all those data files. Because as this table gets bigger and bigger, there might be hundreds or thousands of Parquet files that are part of this table. Okay, so yeah. So hopefully that's just, you're kind of seeing sort of like the benefit of this sort of data lakehouse space, where basically I can go see what's happening on my storage. And again, if one day I decide to use some other lakehouse platform, all I have to do is bring it my storage. I don't have to move my data to a new storage. Okay, and you can see that all the same SQL, because we have a data lakehouse platform that allows us to run SQL statements directly on our data lake storage. Okay, so I have the behavior of a database or a data warehouse. I have that feel without necessarily having to trap my storage or the storage of my data in someone's particular box. Okay, so we can do that. We can also update records. Okay, so let's say I want to update myself, and we'll make it Alexander Merced. So I can be like, hey, update the table, which is going to be table A. update table A, set name to equal Alexander Merced, where name equals Alex Merced. Okay, so we didn't actually do updates during the Intro to SQL series. So let's talk about this. So this query, we're saying, hey, update this table, and that should be table A. So I'm updating table A, and wherever I update it, I'm setting the name field to Alexander Merced, and which rows am I updating is the ones where name equals Alex Merced. So if I run this query, okay, and then also what I'm going to want to do is not only say update table A, set name, blah, 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 and then I'm going to want to select star from table A. Okay, and that will be, we should see like the new updated data there. Okay, so we'll let that run. Good, good. Now let's click on the results for query 2. And we see that, hey, it's been updated. Okay, I can also delete a record. Okay, so I can say, hey, delete from table A, where name equals Alexander Merced. And then again, we'll run that query, select all. Okay, and then again, this allows me to delete a record or delete multiple records. So it's going to delete anything where the where clause matches. So I can hit run. Oops, I think I have the I have a little typo there. Okay, now it was fine. I just had to hit run again. So I ran the query. So you can see here, I ran the delete. And so that went fine. So deleted one record. And then query 2, we see that only Tony is left. Okay, so cool. So basically, querying the data is pretty straightforward in Dremio. So in Dremio, I can do all the same SQL I could in SQLite, but now again, technically what's happening is the data is not stored in Dremio. The data is stored on your Data.Lake, which could be any storage provider that you want. And that's the beauty of this whole Data.Lake tool. And then the secondary cool thing with Dremio is that the data doesn't have just to be the data you have in your data storage or your Data.Lake. I can connect other data sources. So again, I can connect any of these data sources. Okay. And I can even upload files. So right here, I can go click add and I can go upload a file. So in this case, I'm going to go bring that Excel file over. Okay. And save. And that's going to show up in this home space right here. Okay. And then there's that data there, and I can go query it. Okay. And I can bring that data here. Now that data is available to me here. Okay. So bottom line is you have a lot of ways where you can bring data in here. And again, this makes it a really easy way for me to convert data because I can upload this Excel file or a CSV file, and then I can download it as a Parquet file. Typically, making conversions to Parquet files oftentimes requires you to write code in Python just to load the data and then rewrite it as Parquet. With Dremio, I can literally just upload it, run a query on it, and then drop the results into a Parquet file, making it a nice tool not just for querying my data, but also doing little basic conversions like this. Okay, let's go explore the UI a little bit more. Okay, we have the section over here. This is like where you can see all the different queries that we ran, and you can learn more about the queries we ran. So if I click on this, okay, if I click right here, this is going to take me to where I can learn more about the query, and I can see sort of where it spent its time running the query. If I want to get really in detail, I could download the profile, but I could also see the raw profile, meaning all the little step-by-steps of the query right here. Okay, and this is going to be much more if you're really trying to troubleshoot really, really big queries on really, really big data sets and trying to figure out, hey, where a bottleneck may be. You're going to have all this detail right here. Okay, if you want to understand sort of the SQL, here it'll walk you through sort of if there was multiple layers of data sets, which we'll do in future videos, you can actually kind of see the steps of it sort of building up the data, because you might be joining multiple data sets and doing all sorts of stuff. So you have a lot of visibility into what work is being done in Dremio. Okay. And the cool thing is again, as we'll see later on, that you can send queries to Dremio external from this web UI. So there's actually a full-blown REST API, so you could write Python code, Ruby code that sends directions to do a query to Dremio and run these same queries here. But first, we're going to learn more about just running SQL and the SQL that is possible here. Okay, but hopefully you guys saw that I could create tables, I could update tables, I could delete tables, I can insert into tables. Okay, again, if I have that Excel data set right here, I could turn that into an Iceberg table by just saying, hey, create table, and we'll say table B. Okay, or actually, we want to make it Minio. Let me show you the easy way to do this. I could just drag the folder name and put it right over here, and say .table B. So I want to create that table, and then use a create table as statement as we learned in the intro SQL series. Okay, and I can say, hey, as select star from, but again, I don't have to type everything out because I can just drag and drop it right from over here. Okay, then put my semicolon. Okay, and then I can hit run. And what it's going to do, it's going to query this data set here, take that output, and create a new Iceberg table on my data lake storage, which means I can now use this as a way to do what's called ETL work, where I move data from one place to another. Okay, if I can connect the data source to Dremio, I can then use these create table as statements, insert into selects, and other statements like that and there's other tools you can use to bring data over. Okay, so Dremio becomes a power tool to make things that oftentimes would require a lot of hard programming in Python and Java and whatnot, and you can do it in SQL. So SQL just becomes that much more powerful a tool in the data world with Dremio, because you can use it to move data, query data, and curate your data. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, there's a lot more SQL that's possible with Dremio. If you go to the Dremio documentation, there's a whole section on SQL, and we're going to be revisiting a lot of this stuff, like a lot of these SQL functions that are built into Dremio for all sorts of type of cool work. And yeah, we'll get deeper and deeper into it. But this wanted to just introduce you to sort of how to run SQL with Dremio. So I'll see y'all later. Have a great day and enjoy.